From our Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. Our top story tonight. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports that Israeli soldiers have summarily killed 11 men in Gaza in front of their families, a situation they say raises alarm about potential war crimes. In the past 24 hours, Israel's attacks on Khan Yunis in southern Gaza have killed at least 55 Palestinians. Wafa news agency reports that the city of Khan Yunis, once home to around 400,000 people, has suffered extensive damage since Israel's war on Gaza began in October. The Israeli military has ordered the evacuation of a significant portion of central and southern Khan Yunis, affecting the lives of many civilians. Bulldozers from the Israeli occupation forces have also destroyed the Sheikh Sha'ban cemetery in eastern Gaza, exhuming and desecrating the remains of the deceased. Meanwhile, an Israeli airstrike near the Egypt-Gaza border killed a senior border official and 3 others, though Israel's military has denied involvement. Gaza's healthcare system is in dire straits, with only 9 out of 36 health facilities partially operational in the south. In response to the ongoing conflict, Hamas has fired dozens of rockets at southern and central Israel, causing panic but limited damage. Israel's military announced that 3 of its soldiers have been killed in northern Gaza. Since October 7th, at least 134 Israeli soldiers have been killed. Israel has killed at least 20,000 Palestinians since October 7th, while Hamas's attacks on Israel have resulted in nearly 1,140 casualties. A new report by the Council on American Islamic Relations reveals a double standard in how corporations in the U.S. are responding to Israel's war on Palestine. Numerous finance, tech, and healthcare companies rushed to express support for Israel following Hamas's attack in October. However, the report found they have conspicuously failed to acknowledge the thousands of Palestinian civilian casualties as a result of Israel's bombings and attacks on Gaza. The company's pro-Israel statements were disseminated on platforms like Twitter and LinkedIn, even as Israel's indiscriminate bombings inflicted heavy casualties on Palestinians. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy and Google CEO Sundar Pichai expressed sympathy for Israelis affected by the violence. However, they have remained silent about the suffering of Palestinian civilians. While some companies have aimed to create a supportive environment for their Israeli employees, this was not the case for their Palestinian workers, who often felt neglected. Numerous corporations, including Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, Citigroup, and Disney, have released statements favoring Israeli interests. As well, over 700 venture capital firms urged support for Israeli startups without extending similar support to Palestinians. CAIR's report stressed the need for corporations to address these imbalances. It also called for showing compassion for all those affected by the conflict, including Palestinians and their entrepreneurial endeavors. A U.S.-based advocacy group has submitted a list of 40 Israeli military commanders to the International Criminal Court for investigation into alleged war crimes. Democracy for the Arab World Now accuse these commanders of being responsible for indiscriminate bombings and civilian deaths in Gaza. The list includes commanders ranked lieutenant general and above, such as Major General Ghassan Alian, who was responsible for administering the Gaza siege. Though Israel is not an ICC signatory, the court's jurisdiction extends to Palestine, allowing prosecution for war crimes committed there. This action coincides with South Africa's submission of war crimes charges against Israel, along with requests for ICC investigations from Bangladesh, Bolivia, Comoros, and Djibouti. Non-governmental organizations and news networks have also sought ICC probes into journalist killings in the region. Former ICC Chief Prosecutor Luis Moreno Ocampo recently alleged war crimes, including genocide, by both Israel and Hamas during the conflict. A French legislator has called on his government to investigate more than 4,000 French citizens involved in the Israeli army's actions for potential war crimes. Thomas Porte, representing the La France Insoumise party, expressed concern regarding the involvement of French nationals in Israeli army activities amid allegations of war crimes committed in Gaza and the West Bank. He said that if these people are found guilty of such crimes, French justice should hold them accountable. Thousands of French or Franco-Israeli individuals have been participating in the Israeli army's operations. It has drawn attention from various organizations, including the Association France-Palestine Solidarité, which also advocates for accountability in cases of war crimes involving French nationals. Dutch NGO honors Palestinian children. Details after the break, so stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back. In the city of Rotterdam in the Netherlands, a poignant event paid tribute to Palestinian children killed in Israeli attacks on Gaza. The Olive Tree Planting Foundation organized the event at Binnenrad Square, where 8,000 children's shoes were laid out to represent the conflict's tragic toll. Pairs of shoes were added every 10 minutes, highlighting the alarming frequency of child casualties. Volunteers distributed information on Gaza's dire situation. Esther van der Most, the foundation's director, stressed the gravity of the issue, urging an end to child fatalities and the occupation. The ceremony featured the reading of names and ages of the young victims, transforming the square into a solemn memorial. Israeli authorities have confiscated Palestinian-owned land near Bethlehem to construct a new road exclusively for illegal Israeli settlers. Israeli occupation forces took control of more than 1 acre of Palestinian land in the Drought town area, further fragmenting Palestinian territory. The move is part of Israel's broader plan to establish a settler-only road connecting the illegal settlements of Izdbar and Nokdim, both of which are built on Palestinian land. Last month, the Israeli government approved the construction of more than 1,738 settlement units in occupied Jerusalem, violating international law and UN resolutions. Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem has called it apartheid from the river to the sea. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch also consider this to be an apartheid system. President Joe Biden says former President Donald Trump supported the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. He made the statement after Colorado's Supreme Court removed Trump from the state's presidential ballot, citing the Constitution's 14th Amendment. The insurrection clause seeks disqualification of people engaged in insurrection from holding public office. Biden said, "It's self-evident, you saw it all." Trump's legal team is expected to appeal the ruling to the U.S. Supreme Court. The lawsuit filed by Colorado voters and Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington argued that Trump's involvement in the Capitol riot warranted his disqualification. The January 6 riot led to the evacuation of lawmakers and disrupted the transition of power to President Biden. 2 indigenous tribes in Washington state have filed lawsuits against ExxonMobil, Shell, Chevron, BP, ConocoPhillips, and Phillips 66. The Makah Indians and Shoalwater Bay Indians aim to hold these oil giants accountable for their alleged deception regarding the environmental impact of fossil fuel extraction. The complaints are part of a series of lawsuits against major oil companies since 2017, highlighting the growing legal pressure on the fossil fuel industry for its role in climate change. They have cited evidence that the companies were aware of their products' contribution to climate change for decades. The tribes, who live near the Pacific Ocean, argue they are especially vulnerable to rising sea levels, incurring significant costs to protect their lands. They accuse the oil companies of creating a public nuisance and violating Washington's Products Liability Act. The tribes are seeking jury trials and request the court establish an abatement fund to remediate and adapt their reservation lands, natural resources, and infrastructure. The U.S. Press Freedom Tracker has raised concerns about a disturbing trend of criminalization of journalism in the country. The tracker is a database of press freedom incidents in the United States. It contains everything from arrests of journalists and seizure of their equipment to assaults and interrogations at the U.S. border. The Press Freedom Tracker documents incidents nationwide involving national, state, and local authorities. In 2023, at least 12 journalists, mostly working for local media outlets, faced arrest or charges relating to their news-gathering activities. The number of arrests is lower than in previous years when protests dominated headlines. But the report highlights how journalists were targeted for engaging in routine reporting, including questioning public officials. It cites approximately 30 cases where journalists and media outlets were pressured to reveal sources or hand over reporting materials. Cases include an Alabama newspaper publisher and reporter being arrested for publishing an article containing confidential grand jury evidence. And in Illinois, a reporter faced citations for asking city officials too many questions about flooding. Experts stress that such violations make it increasingly challenging for journalists to perform their duties. The U.S. has lost a significant portion of its newspapers, and the trend of suppressing press freedom continues to threaten the First Amendment's integrity. California regulators have greenlit a groundbreaking initiative to recycle wastewater for direct use in the state's drinking water supply. The move marks a significant step in addressing California's long-standing water crisis. This decision comes after years of grappling with severe droughts, with the most recent being the driest 3-year period on record, leaving reservoirs at dangerously low levels. The new rules empower water agencies to treat wastewater from bathrooms and reintroduce it into the drinking water system. Major water agencies in California that serve millions plan to build large water recycling plants. But convincing the public of the safety and quality of recycled water remains a challenge. Stringent treatment processes ensure safety but strip water of minerals that enhance taste, necessitating their addition. Building these facilities is costly, limiting initial adoption to larger, well-funded cities. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.